Hello everyone, welcome to another stream where we're going to be talking about web development, there you go, we're going to talk about web development, we're going to talk about storage especially, Redux, memory management, a lot of front-end stuff right now. I will go back to talking about Node.js and APIs as well later, not in this stream, but some other time. For now, we're going to continue with React. Stream seems to be working. Very good. So we started last time this project Luke Shop, and so far we have almost nothing here. You can type something in, you can submit it. Nothing really happens to it. It just gets stored. But I showed you how it works with some handlers and how you can this handler for onChange has a state hook, uses a state hook, use state, where you get two things, object, set object. So when I say set object and I fill something in, then that becomes the new object, and this refreshes all the time, right? That's how React works. So now we're gonna be moving on to some other states, but I was thinking maybe to start with something else that I mentioned in at the end of the last video. What if you have a global state, right? So instead of having a component that you're styling through properties, which is something I did here, for instance, I said this is a success component and I passed a name property to it. And then on the other side of it, I received that property here. Excuse me. All right, so I received the property here, and then I can put it into another hook perhaps, and this will update as well. And so when this updates, then this will update, and then this use effect will go off. That's what we discussed last time. But now I'm here to tell you that for things like name, things that I would consider, things in a form that you're filling in, like things you want to remember throughout the state of your whole app, it's better to use Redux. Maybe Redux themselves can give a good predictable state container for JavaScript apps. Predictable, centralized, debuggable, flexible. I don't know. I mean, marketing talk, but I guess this is how. I'll just show you a bit more details about it as we implement it. I'm actually going to copy my implementation from my other website, LukeGG. So for my most popular video on YouTube, actually, I'm quite happy about it. But I hope that this can be a more in-depth series for not really popular perhaps, but for people who really want to build it by piece and slowly learn it. That's why I'm making this new longer series. So let me just copy over some of this stuff. We also immediately see that we're missing these dependencies. So I'm just gonna immediately yarn install them. Or yarn add. We want React Redux and Redux Toolkit. I wonder, the type should be installed already with Redux Toolkit. That seems to not be the case. Redux Toolkit, it is installed. Maybe it's just because I'm using things like state here, which is not yet defined. I do already have types. It only has a form state right now. I'm gonna make a new state I'm just gonna keep it empty for now, that's fine. There you go. No, it really doesn't want to recognize it. Maybe I just need to implement, sometimes it works like that, because you can see it's still kind of loading an older version. Wait, it's even saying that types doesn't have state, but it clearly does. I guess I'll just restart this, see if that helps. I mean, I know that things are wrong inside of here because we still have properties. Let me just clean that up, I guess. Oh, I also really need to clean up these. I'll do that later, I guess. Did I delete too much? Oh yeah, I think I did. Yeah, problem is that there is a certain type I need to apply here. And I forgot. I think this is just because it's not imported correctly. These types should already be injected. Very strange. Hey, it's running. Now it says there's no error here, but the editor somehow is still not happy. Which is very strange, honestly. Maybe it's just because I haven't actually imported the store yet anywhere. You're supposed to put it around something. So how that works is you have a store, and you need to put a provider around your app in order to inject that store, so to speak. And how that works is if you go to index here, not that index, not the API index, but the client index. Here you can see that I'm importing the store. I'll do the same over here. And then you put a provider around the app like this. Right? Perfect. And then of course you need to also include that provider like this. Okay, that should now inject it. Now we should see the error that we saw before. These are the three errors. I don't understand why they're there. Let's see, do we have anything running here? This is running. Now let's give it a test, right? So we're gonna go to types again, and we're gonna make a new property. Let's say we have an error, which would be a string. Right, that is always a classic thing to have in your state, some kind of global error that you could display if there's something, broken. You might want to display in a pop-up or something. We go back to the state now in the store, default state, and we're going to say the error by default is going to be like, I just want some value to be there already, so I'll just say startup error. For now, the app is going to launch and immediately say there's some kind of startup error. That's my goal here. And now what I can do on this side, I need to import the use selector, but I want to import it from the store. because there I have a better version than the. So I'll show you that the version we have here, the use selector, is actually a typed use selector that already has the state in there. So it's better than the use selector that comes directly from Redux. Just a second. Okay. So yeah, we have the use selector that we import. Very good. We can use this const. So what do we want to get? We're just going to get the error out. In fact, the way I'm going to get it out right now is like this. It's a little, might look a little weird, but I'm just going to select the entire state. Let me just call it state. Maybe that's more clear. I'm just going to select the whole state. You can also decide to select only parts of your state. In this case, I'm just grabbing the whole state so that I can deconstruct it here and very quickly add more things to this. It doesn't matter. It's just a simple way of getting this error out. And then I'll just add, is there an alert already? No, it's fine. I'll just add a strong and put the error in there. Okay, very good. We have startup error now here. However, I'm still concerned that somehow my editor is not recognizing this. I'm just gonna restart my whole editor. I don't know why this is happening. Maybe I have noticed that if you install with npm, it doesn't always have this issue. Usually it's when it's like installed as a submodule, then things don't always update correctly, which is pretty bad. But if I don't see the error anymore now, yeah, I think it's fine. Wow, that is pretty bad. Well, let's hope they fix it. At least for now, it won't stop us. I mean, we can just continue development, but I understand for new developers this might be very frustrating. Hey, get default middleware is deprecated. Oh, well, how am I supposed to do it now then? Let's actually find out on the website. I haven't read that message before. I just want to get their docs. It doesn't say anything about being deprecated here. So their API reference still mentions it being normal. I'm just gonna ignore this deprecation warning for now. I mean, I just wanted to use the default middleware anyway, so it shouldn't really be relevant, but okay. Okay, good. So let's try to show you the power of Redux. I installed it, right? I created a store. I put some state into it, an initial state. I have a typed definition of that state in my types. And then I used a selector to get the value out. Now, I guess our goal would be now to replace this form state with this state, right? So everything we used to put in our form state and kind of give as a property to others, we're going to do it differently now. We're just going to put these things here. Submitted is going to be date, or it doesn't exist, it says. In this case, I like to have my properties exist. So I'll just say that it can be null, right? So that by default submitted is null. And name is string, that's fine. We can give it an empty string by default. So let's do this, right? Let's go to the store again, where we have this. And then name will be an empty string and submitted will be null. This will be the default state. Also, startup will not have an error at all. Okay, perfect. We're good. Um, Eventually we're going to delete form state. In fact, I think I'll delete it now. I mean, some stuff will break that I will need to fix, but okay. So one of the most important things is here, right? That this component no longer needs to get it from. We're not going to use this use state anymore, and we're gonna pass. And we're gonna pass. We're not gonna pass this to success anymore. The name is not going to be passed down as a property. Very good. So now we want to know the name from the use selector. That's where it needs to come through. And we're gonna remove every place where we normally have object.submitted and object. Because the object is gone, we're no longer having the object, we're just grabbing it straight from the state. Here, since we don't have the object, we want the name property to be repeated. That should be enough. Actually, no, wait a minute. Yeah, this is pretty important. So set object is no longer, doesn't exist anymore. We're gonna now do it differently, and we're gonna do it with dispatch. Before I do that, I want to show you how it looks like and why you need to dispatch and things like that. So if I'm gonna inspect this element, I'm gonna enable my Redux extension, and here it is. So now we have Redux here, and it has a state, error, empty, name, empty, submitted, null in it. So this is nothing is happening. I didn't do anything, right? We just loaded the initial state and there's nothing going on. This is the normal way. But now we're going to dispatch an event. So I'm going to say that we're going to use dispatch, and we're going to load in our actions, which has been generated from our store. And this is all going to make sense soon. Not yet. We're going to say that we have a new dispatch function. And now, whenever we wanted to originally use the state update, we're going to use dispatch an action. And I made an action called set, where you can give a partial state and it'll update. So in this case, we wanted to, if you submit, we wanted to set the submitted property to a new date. There's one thing about this though. I mean, it's okay, you could put dates in the store. However, I think there's a problem with serialization. Okay, we'll find that problem when we hit that. Let's for now keep going. So yeah, we're doing the same thing as set object now, but now we're doing it in Redux style. And it's a little bit more complicated. You see that we have an action set, where we give that argument that we want to give as the payload, and then we put a dispatch around it to put it into the store. It's a little more complicated than simply calling one function, but it's almost the same, right? So instead of calling a function, you're calling a function that calls a function as an argument, and the return value is an action. Here you can see the action, and that's with it has a payload and a type, and that's what you're submitting. Okay, it'll hopefully get more clear later. I think we can just give the name here. And this is another case where we can change the set object to a dispatch. We also no longer need to repeat ourselves with this. We don't need to give other values that already exist. We only need to give the update. I'll show you in a second why that is the case. Very good, very good. Submitted to JSON. This is it. Oh, forgot to remove that. And also our success message no longer takes this. So now it's just a clean function object. And we need to use the use selector again to get it out. We're just interested in name. We don't need dispatch here. Okay, great. So now you can see every time I type, we dispatch a new set action to the store. And you can see that in my state now, it filled in whatever I'm typing. I submit, and then this is given to. Perfect. Now this is interesting because when I submit, this doesn't look like a date, this looks like a string. Right, so that is a little concerning. Yeah, here, see, a non-serializable value was detected. Now, you could like have other ways of doing this, of fixing this. However, um, I don't like when I'm loading data from an API, you never have the date object directly in JavaScript object notation. You get the JSON string as a value. And I like to always kind of shove that value directly into my store. And then if I need to get the real date object from it, I actually do that inside of my components, not inside of my store. I mean, there are other developers that do it differently. You can make serializers. There are other solutions to this. However, the reason I like it is because then we can just do it simply. We can say this submitted is also string empty by default, no null, it's just going to be a string. And we're not even going to say it's optional, it's always required now. Because an empty string is considered false, so we can just use that. Keep everything super simple. But yeah, now the only thing is, of course, that when the app is submitting a submitted, we have to do toJSON at the end, make it a string. And we don't need to do toJSON here because that's already what it is. Perfect. Right, so and now if you look at the Redux store, everything is a string, very simple. This is an extremely basic state, but now you can maybe see that when the app grows, you're going to get many of these component files and extra folders and depths and hierarchy. Once the app becomes a serious production app, the way that this works with use dispatch and use selector is very valuable. You don't need to worry about at what level you give what properties to what sub item like we did before with submitted. Now you can have them very clean and they will load in their own dependencies um, with the use selector inside of them again. Very simple. And I really like Redux. I think it's very clean. There's also another way to show this, the chart. It's kind of funny. See, now you can see what the values and that it connects as a chart. I don't know. You can see the diff in every move. You can actually replay this as well. So yeah, you can see here that I was typing. You can see the interface update as I replay the store. So it gives you these kind of debugging opportunities. Slowly replay what you've done. Okay. However, there is something I'm not that happy about yet. Let me first show you the set action, because you saw that we have the in the app we use this actions.set, and you can say, where does this come from, right? Because this is actually something I created. I made a reducer which I called set, which takes the state, takes the action, and then merges them together with two spread operators, right? So this allows you to have a partial state in action. I actually need to, what I want to do now is I want to type this a bit better, because you can see that the payload here says it's any. So we want to give it a state. Now I actually forgot that stuff. Typed payloads. Mm, let's see how they do it. They're doing it a bit differently than I did. I just want to give that type directly in here in the reducers. Oh, here it is. Payload action, and then you say what it is. Well, that's pretty straightforward, I guess. Yeah, that's good. So now we go to the TypeScript thing where we say it's a payload action. Now we need to give an argument to that, which is what it is. Now I believe what I want to do next is partial. Because I mean, I could say, hey, you need to give me the state, but this is not completely correct because I don't want the whole state. It's okay if you give me a partial one. So there should be question marks before each of these values. But in TypeScript, you can just now I'm not sure. I think this is normal TypeScript. TypeScript partial utility types partial. See, this is what I want. TypeScript provides several utility types to facilitate common type transformations, right? And this is a common one. So you want to make certain properties partial, then you can just use partial. So we can say partial type. So partial state. Now when I hover this, it doesn't say much, but it says that the state, of course, is the normal state. We make it partial, and that's the payload. And state is already defined as a writable draft state, so that's perfect. So yeah, now because we've done this, it should be the case that when I'm typing in the app and I'm doing a dispatch, let's see, is it aware? Yes. See, it knows that the payload is supposed to be a partial state, right? So if I type, yeah, see, it knows that it's okay to give an error here. It's an optional property that you can give. That should also be submitted. See, it also fills that in. So now TypeScript is aware of what you're allowed to fill in to this action set, right? And this is the whole reason you want TypeScript. You want to be able to quickly type properties, and if you type something here that is not part of the state, then it will give you an error and it'll warn you, and this is exactly what you want, right? You want TypeScript to help you out. Okay, so that was Redux for now, I guess. We could show you, I mean, I could show you multiple reducers. I think for now we don't want to go too much into depth. I think we just want to use this. Um, but I think this is one of the best, cleanest, smallest solutions that gives you all the tooling as well that you really need, right? That I showed you with all this stuff. Let's go down to LookDG and see what's next. Use memo, use callback, use ref. Sure. So before, I mean, while we do this, I want to go into a bit of React depth, right? I'm gonna actually try something here. Try to show you something by typing something here. I'm just gonna say console log 22. Okay, so I'll refresh just to be sure. We only saw it go off once. Okay. Nothing is happening. Every time I type something, you can see it's refreshing. But that makes a lot of sense. If I click, it's refreshing also. Let's see if no, it doesn't do anything there. Resizing doesn't do anything. I'm trying to basically execute this again and again. Let me try it now as well on success here on the inner component. I just want to give you some intuition of when things change. So now it exists, and every time I change this, of course, that reloads as well. Do I do this? It also reloads. So when you think about writing code here, like in the component itself, you have to understand this is executing on every change that happens throughout the whole app. And you don't always want to execute something, right? So use effect is an example where only if name change, this executes all the time, but the use effect hook prevents this function from being executed every time and only executes it when this changed, right? So the use, what's called the use memo is the same, but instead of having an effect, it is instead meant to have a return value. So you can say const, um, let's say we have a capitalized name. Then we say we have a use memo. We take that, we will return the name to uppercase. Now we need to give the name as a property, just like with use state, right? So now in this case, to uppercase would be a very quick and low CPU function. So it shouldn't matter too much if you use a memo or not. You can also do this every time the component renders. So you could do it here, right? You can just do it here. Oh, sorry. Here. However, if this becomes a more complicated function that does, some more processing, you want to put a use memo around it to make your app properly responsive. And sometimes it's difficult for web developers to follow these kind of optimizations, and you end up with a bit of a slow reacting app. Um, and that is, people for that reason often dislike, um, especially programmers, they dislike advanced front ends, single page applications, because they're not always optimized. And this is just because of sloppy programming. And it's a bit sad that this there's a misconception that it's always supposed to be slow. That's not the case. If you use these kind of optimizations, it doesn't need to be. Anyway, so now we can let's also look at actually here. I updated. Yeah, I don't have it. I guess I can just repeat it in this case. And I'll put that value there. So now, oh right, I need to actually post it. See, every time I type, the use effect goes off and the use memo goes off at the same time because name is changing. And then the capital version of it is released. See, so it's basically the same as use effect, except this time it's using a return value. Right, and then if you change something like this, then you see that it's not executing because name did not change, but you know that this function, this thing does re-execute, right? So if I again put log22 here, this thing is changing, but the hooks are not firing. So this is exactly why you have these hooks. Okay, so let's use memo. Perfect. And use callback is kind of the same, but the only difference again is that you're using a function. Well, let's just do it, I guess. Use callback. Now here, because it's a function, you can give it arguments. So you can say, I'm gonna give an error that it's a bit weird to put it here actually. I'm just gonna call it test. And this is gonna be a function, so it's, yeah, why would you need this? I guess I'm out of ideas. I'm just gonna write some nonsense. Okay, so now we say that we have a use callback um, that will return the name, and therefore whenever the name changes, we need to update this function. And then if I use this function, for instance, when you click on it, when you click on this, oh, capitalize doesn't exist anymore. That's cool. I'm also just going to delete this hook because it's annoying me. Oh right, we need to give it a test string. Boom. Yeah, it doesn't need to return anything because we're not doing anything with the return value, right? Yeah, this is good. So, oh, you need to click on this, yeah. I updated boom, and then it says the name to uppercase in the console log. It's a bit of a stupid function and stupid example. However, I'm just trying to say, why would you want to do this, right? Why would you want to have test function around use callback? Why not just do this? And the reality is with a console log, I guess you could also just do this. Because again, this function is too small. It's okay if every time you type a letter, every time you click on a button, this function is redefined and then injected. However, again, for more complicated situations, which very quickly happen, um, for more complicated functions that do more, it's better to reuse the same reference, to reuse the same function that was already defined before. So by doing use callback, um, you have a much cleaner, you have a much more optimized way of rendering this component. And of course, the thing is though that if you're using inside of this, you're using properties from the state, from the surrounding scope, like name, right, which was loaded here, then you do need to declare that here. You need to say when that changes, I want this definition to change, and then test function will change, and then this onClick will change. And you can now also, if you use this test function inside of another function, you can give this test function to the next onCallback. So if I said test2 function, test function 2, and I use, the only thing I use in here is this other test function, you would have to do something like this. Right, so now whenever name changes, test function changes. When that happens, then this changes, and then test function 2 changes, and then you can do test function 2 here. Okay, and then you could also give it, I guess there. Anyhow, so yeah, that's how use callback, use memo, use effect, and you can see also that there's a lot of overlap between these things. Like you're doing relatively the same thing. It's about optimizing memory management and the life cycle of a component, like controlling it in a special way. I would say use effect so far is the most difficult, or has another thing you need to remember, with the return value being a function that can clean the effect up. That's pretty special. There's also a use layout effect. Because the use effect happens before the layout is updated, and use layout effect happens after the layout is updated. So all these hooks are extremely valuable. But now there's one thing I do think is very interesting: use ref. Use ref is often not fully understood. Um, it sounds a little more complicated, I guess, when you're trying to explain it. Now it's time for me to try to explain it in an easy way. And the easiest way is just to say that um, this is basically when you don't want to use React. Like if I want to say like, what's a good example? Uh, don't refresh my value. Use ref. La. Let's just console log this. see what's happening. Oh, I guess I don't use name anymore. Okay, so now you see that there is this, I logged the don't refresh my value ref. The ref is in here. And it tells you that there's an object that now has the value current and it says lala. Okay, so why did it put a object there with the property current? This has to do with React will constantly update this value. Don't refresh my value. It will refresh this value, but we don't want that. We want a reference to stay a reference without being updated, and that's why React did a trick. React said, okay, it's fine. We're going to keep updating this outer value. So every time you type something, we will make a new object with current inside of it, but current will not be updated. So that's the trick. That's the whole key to it. So now, I think it would even be possible. Let me try something. Let me say that the window window.test equals this dot current. That wouldn't be good. In fact, I'll just do this. So I'll can I use lint disable line? No, he's not happy. Okay. Or I can do it like this. Oh wait, I know. Window as any. It's a bit dirty, but so be it. Okay, so I'm just gonna attach the current object to test. Oh, sorry. So now if I type test here. Oh wait, I of course need to. There you go. Now if I type test, we have the current attached here. Now I'm interested to say if I can I change this? Boom, boom. So now you see that I changed it outside of React. I changed this object to boom boom, but every time now it refreshes, it already knows that change, right? So this is exactly why you use ref, right? You have an outside piece of code. Maybe it's very often this would be a library that doesn't really work with React, right? Maybe it's a library that wants to work directly with certain DOM trees. So for instance, I can say document body, for instance. Maybe I want that to be inside of there. And now whenever I type here, the document body will be as a reference in that property current. And even though the outside object is constantly refreshed, it don't refresh my value because the value is inside in current. It's safe and it can be referenced and it will not be reset by any React part. React will basically just ignore this. However, there is a downside to this too, of course. If you have a use effect or something, so you wanted something to execute only when this value changes, well, now that doesn't work. React doesn't know when this value changes, right? Like this changes all the time, and this current value it doesn't track. So, um, so yeah, that's the downside of useref. Useref really mentally should mean I'm leaving React. I'm no longer going to be using React. Now it's not. You can still use this value, by the way, inside of a use effect. It's just you can't trigger the use effect when it changes. That's all. But you can use the value inside, right? So if I have some kind of weird function executing somewhere, you can always reference this dot current, always. And it's always dot current, by the way. That's one of the rules. Now, if you want to type this thing, you do that here, right? You say, hey, if it's, for instance, if it can be null, then you can do it like this. right? And now it will understand already that this value that you type here is with it for the current, is inside of the current property. It's not that the entire object will be a string or a null. It will always be an object with the value current, and that will be whatever you write here and whatever you provide here as an argument. Okay. Okay. I mean, use ref, we're going to see over time why we would want to use a use ref. I guess for now, maybe one of the best examples, I guess, would still be my LukeGG website where I have a career page. I think I use a use ref here, don't I? Oh, did I move it to a Google Maps component? Probably. Yes. So here I have a use ref to Google Maps, and Google Maps doesn't work together with React. So I say that we have an HTML div element or null, and that will be my Google Map reference, right? So whenever I want to have this callback, I want to um, create a Google Map, then I need to execute this function. And this is again a function that's attached to the window from Google Maps. It doesn't know about React. It doesn't want to know about React. And then I just give that property of the map ref. But the thing is, how did I get that map ref, right? And that's a special way that I do want to show. Um, well, in this case, I'm selecting it and just manually putting it in this layout effect. So layout effect, I'm waiting until the component is rendered, and then I do document query selectors to find the component and to put it on there, right? And if it doesn't exist, I create it. So I explained this in my other video a bit more. Not too much though. It's I would say it's pretty complicated. I think I called it tricky in that video, which is maybe a good description. But there's another way to actually put an object into the reference, which is like this: ref equals, um, and then you give the whole thing. Now the weird thing is that it's not going to be a string. I guess this would be forward ref exotic alert props. I'm just gonna say that I'm not gonna type it. Maybe it knows itself. Should be fine. I can remove this use effect. Current is null. That's not nice. Okay, it was just not updated yet. Fine. Because I logged it before it was rendered, so then I had to refresh it again before I actually saw the value. That's fine. And now you see that it put the actual DOM element inside here. So this is another way of basically manually setting the ref when something renders, right? And now if you have maybe a library that needs the real direct document object model value, right? The div, you can use this ref and give that to it. Dot current. Okay, so that's use ref. And we're gonna show more examples when we're building the Luke shop. Eventually we're gonna build this app out once I've explained all the basics, all the hooks, all the ways that you can use React. Memory management is what we did today as well. Then we'll move over to actually building this as a real shop. I guess I should also find some payment solution to put inside. And that will be exciting because I believe, my viewers, I hope that people are watching this on YouTube. You want to build something real. You want to build something practical. We're not here to just do theory. I know we've been doing a lot of theory so far, but I'm just telling you that we're going to get to way more practical, real applications, right? But the core of that would be to have something like this store, to understand how to define reducers, how to dispatch these actions that come from it, how to have a default state, And then in your components, how to write optimized components that don't make your website slow, keep everything crisp and fast, and that also know how to work outside of React with the use ref. I think that is what I want to explain today. I'm gonna make more videos. Let's see for real quick. We want to go into positioning elements. That's some styling. Okay, pseudo selector, sure. TypeScript. Well, we've already been doing a lot of TypeScript. Typed functions already doing that. Promises, I already discussed this in the last video. Working with special operators, maybe. And then I go towards API as well. Well, maybe it's time for an API video too. I don't know. I've been doing a lot of React in the last 2 videos already. So maybe it's time for some Node.js to get that full stack experience. Everything in TypeScript. Okay, thank you very much, and see you in the next video.